Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, we are going to be talking about the Champions League semifinals. We're finally here. We're in the last four. And bro, FC Barcelona is in the last four. We gotta be geeked up. We have to be excited. We have to be enthusiastic of what's to come because it was not an easy road. I do think that out of all teams here, Barcelona had the best path to get to the semifinals because we are going to be talking about how Arsenal and PSG got into the semifinals and what was their current form. If you guys want to have more emphasis on FC Barcelona, since this is a Barcelona channel, go to my previous video that I have uploaded. It is much more Barcelona versus Inter Milan centric. But in this match preview, we're going to be having more emphasis on PSG and Arsenal since there is a potential future of Barcelona facing one of those two teams. So it is going to be a lot of fun. And let's talk about the remaining teams. Barcelona versus Inter on Wednesday, and we have PSG on Arsenal on Tuesday. Arsenal and PSG are going to be aiming for their first ever Champions League trophy, while Barcelona and Inter Milan are going to be seeking their first title in over a decade. I believe the last time Inter Milan won a Champions League was back in 2010. And then Barcelona, the last time we won a Champions League trophy was back in 2015. So if we were to win a Champions League trophy this year, it would mark exactly 10 years ago. So a new champion is guaranteed for sure this year. After years of seeing Real Madrid win the Champions League over and over again, we also saw Liverpool, we saw Chelsea, we saw Bayern also win the Champions League through those years. But I do think that moving forward from 2025 for the next 5 to 6 years, we're going to be seeing brand new winners, and Barcelona is going to be the face of it. So looking at Arsenal's past 3 matches, Arsenal have won against Real Madrid 3-0. They have won against Ipswich. I don't know how you pronounce that team, but they have defeated them 4-0. And then a 2-2 draw versus Crystal Palace in the Premier League. So Arsenal are in good form. And in terms of injury updates for Arsenal, Gabriel is out for the season. Hamstring injury. Ben White is expected to be fit, but there is going to be like some issues there will be some issues because in terms of like the reports that we have seen for Ben White has been really on and off. Some people have said that he might be okay or not be okay. So as of now, I'm going to rule Ben White off. Mikel Merino has his fitness status unclear, right? So we'll see what happens to Mikel Merino, but he's going to be very important. Then we do have Ricardo, who is not ready to return yet. Jorginho has been sidelined for like a few weeks. So that's also going to be a very big concern. Saka is improving and is likely to be available. So as of right now, everything is very 50-50 for the majority of these players. And in terms of how Mikel Arteta does view this team and its current form, he has been saying a few things, and he stated after the match against Crystal Palace, "I'm disappointed with the result and performance. We lacked consistency to completely dominate." And he did warn these players that if they were to carry this exact same drive to the match against PSG, it's going to cost them a lot. So he wants Arsenal to be on their toes against PSG because it's not going to be easy. So going into this match against PSG, who are going to be the key players for Arsenal? And I do think that it is going to be Saka, Declan Rice, and Martin Odegaard. I would also tell you Mikel Merino, like what we have talked about before, it's very 50-50. And I'm just going to revolve it around these 3 players because they have been very key overall for Arsenal in the Premier League and especially in the Champions League. Saka and Rice in particular, as a matter of fact, outperformed their expectations this season and standing out in crucial matches. And the fact that Arsenal are not going to be facing PSG, one of their toughest opponents yet, and they have actually defeated them before in the Champions League 2-0. It's going to be hard no matter what. So players like Rice and Saka, they're going to have to step up. Saka, at the age of 23 years old, in the Premier League, 21 matches, 6 goals and 11 assists. Amazing. Champions League, 7 matches, 5 goals and 2 assists. Once again, amazing. He also scored a chipped goal against Real Madrid in the quarterfinals in the second leg. Arteta was like, this is just unbelievable. He claimed Saka as like one of the untouchables. So great, right? We have Declan Rice at 26 years old, 32 matches in the Premier League, 2 goals and 7 assists. In the Champions League, 11 matches played, 4 goals and 2 assists. One of the highlights that he has had, I think that we all know this, right? 2 stunning free kicks against Real Madrid in the first leg where Arsenal won 3-0. One of his strengths is being that defensive anchor at the back. He's also a very surprising goal scorer, very similar to Rodri, and he is a midfield leader. Martin Odegaard, right? 26 matches in the Premier League, 2 goals and 6 assists. In the Champions League, 9 matches played, 3 goals and 2 assists. He is the creative captain, I would say. He is the key also to both in the group stages and in the knockout rounds. Martin Odegaard was leading in the final third, and so he was simply amazing. I would also like to even call out William Saliba, who has been the defensive foundation for Arsenal's deep European run, and he helped Arsenal maintain the best expected goals against in the Champions League. Moving on towards PSG, and this is where things get very interesting because we're going to be talking about Dembele a lot. In the past 3 matches for PSG, a 2-1 win against Le Havre, right, in the League 1, a 1-1 draw versus Nantes in the League 1, and then a 1-3 loss to Nice in the League 1 yet again. It is a recent beat up for PSG, right? I don't know why they lost. For some reason, I expected PSG to like really just freaking fly through these past 3 matches, but they are struggling. Now, what's so interesting about PSG is even though PSG are in the semifinals of the Champions League, they were not in the top 4 in the Champions League table. Like, newsflash, right? If we look at the top 5 teams in the Champions League, PSG were not there. And the teams that were there were Inter Milan, they were in the semifinals, Barcelona in the semifinals, and Arsenal in the semifinals. So 3 in the top 4 of the Champions League table ended up in the semifinals today. And PSG is the only team that were not in the top 4 nor the top 5. PSG have had a ugly run to the semifinals. I'm going to be calling out the record in the Champions League. I'm going to be like rolling off the wins because there is more losses than wins in the run. For example, they lost against Arsenal 2-0. They lost against Atletico Madrid 2-1. They lost against Bayern 1-0. They beat Man City 4-2. I thought that was the turning point. But then after that, they lost against Liverpool 1-0. Then they came back in the second leg against Liverpool 1-0, beat them in penalties. They won against Aston Villa 3-1, then lost against Aston Villa 3-2. So it's like they had like 4 or 5 losses getting into the semifinals. Isn't that insane? You would assume that like with around 4 to 5 losses for PSG, that they would be out by this point, but no, they have been very, very lucky getting to this point, and they clearly have the worst run out of all teams that is left in the semifinals. Barcelona had the best run, Arsenal as well, but PSG, dude, like it has been very, very ugly. So here are going to be a few key points that I have for PSG. Dembele is their biggest weapon. It is because Dembele, who started off as a right winger in this season, has transitioned into the center forward role. So it is going to be a player that I believe is going to be very hard for Arsenal to defend. And I remember right back in mid-December of 2024, that is where he made that shift from the right wing position to the central 9 position. And ever since then, you know, he has been amazing. He has 25 goals in 20 games from mid-December up until mid-March 2025. That is insane what Luis Enrique has been able to do. And, you know, like I've said, he has been deployed as a right winger. In the match against Bayern Munich on November 26, 2024, that is where we really did see him transition into a number 9. And since then, Luis Enrique is like, you know what? You know how to play as a 10 or as a false 9 or maybe even a 9. We need you in those positions. There were a lot of reports back then where they said that Luis Enrique had the idea of always playing Dembele in the exile position as a long-term central 9. And that is because it has been heavily influenced of Mbappe's departure to Real Madrid in the summer of 2024. Luis Enrique was like, okay, I lost Mbappe. Now I don't really have a number 9. I don't have anybody reliable. Should I just put Dembele there? Because if you look at their options and who they have on the wings, they have Kivicha, they have Due, I don't know how to pronounce these names, Barcola. All of these players that I have been seeing over the past 10 to 15 matches, right? These wingers, they're world class. I cannot see Luis Enrique like ignoring these wingers. They need to be on the pitch. Hence the reason why he shifted Dembele to the number 9 position. So we started to see Dembele on the number 9 position. And since then, since making this shift, like what we talked about before, 25 goals in 20 matches, he has been completely transformed by Luis Enrique. He even had back-to-back hat-tricks at one point back in January 2025 in the Champions League against Stuttgart, hat-trick. Against Brest in League 1, hat-trick. So he has been on form. And Arsenal have to take care of him if they want to have any chances of trying to get through PSG. So as for like their injuries, they have no major injury concerns at all. Like notice how I had to go through a freaking list for Arsenal. Like we're like, okay, like Mikel Merino might make it, he might not make it. We don't even know about Saka, he might make it, he might not make it. But with PSG, it's like, no, we don't have nobody injured. We're good. They have a full squad. So in terms of like how Luis Enrique feels about his team, because Arteta on his side was saying, you know, this was a disappointing result against Crystal Palace, and like we cannot come out like this against PSG or we will suffer. Like he gave off that impression. With Luis Enrique, he stated like, I'm not worried. 0. I'm calm. I'm fine. We lost against Nice, but I'm not worried. We're going to go into this game and really give it our all. So you can just see like the mentality is different leading up to this match. He even praised that PSG had 30 shots against Nice. He's like, you know, because of these 30 shots and more against Nice, I'm not concerned. And he also promised that they're going to do their best for their supporters. So we'll see. I am for sure going to be watching this game. I am for sure going to be watching the post-match review, the press conference and all that. I want to see what these people have to say. It's going to be very exciting. I'm also going to make my own post-match review for the match between Arsenal and PSG. I expect Arsenal to have I would just say, attacking mindset going up against PSG. They thrive against very open games. They have been very wide in these games as well, right? Trying to force any opposition to go out wide and really congest the midfield. Arsenal themselves even like to be very wide when attacking, right? Not even in just defending, but in attacking. They like to attack on the wings in terms of like going central and trying to attack through the middle. They're like 24% of their attacks go through the middle. The rest go on the wings. So it's insane. And I do think that is mainly because of Saka and how great he has been on the right wing position. And you know, they have the advantage because they have a strong record against PSG already. A 2-1 win earlier this season. In terms of like their defensive solidity, 0.83 expected goals conceded per 90 minutes. It's the second best in Europe's top leagues. So it's all about who's going to be the most concentrated between these two teams. PSG, high pressing, technical possession. Luis Enrique, I think that they will win in terms of possession. They will have the ball. Luis Enrique demands the ball over and over again, and they have done that against Barcelona as well. So if you don't think that they can do it against, you know, like, bro, they're gonna do it. Like, for sure, Luis Enrique, they will have possession. Arsenal will have less, and it's gonna be a matter of whether Arsenal can defend against Dembele and Barcola or not. They have the most take-ons per 90 in the Champions League as well, 27.9. That is because, once again, they have all the possession in the world, and they have danger in the wide areas from Mendes and Hakimi. Arsenal are going to have to be very disciplined here. They can struggle if you apply PSG pressure, intense pressure, aggressive pressure, like Aston Villa, right? Aston Villa, when I saw them pressure PSG when they had the ball, PSG at times, they can struggle. It is very much possible, but I do see the game playing out like that. PSG ultimately will have the ball around 60% of the time. Arsenal, not so much, but I do think that Arsenal's defense will help them strive to get through PSG, and I believe that in the end, we'll see a 1-1 draw in the first leg. As for FC Barcelona and Inter Milan, I will just tell you, Barcelona will win 2-0 against Inter Milan. That's going to be it, right? That has to be it. Arsenal, PSG, 1-1, first leg. Inter Milan and Barcelona, 2-0. Or Inter Milan will not score against us. I just don't think it's going to happen. So let's see. I cannot wait. I'm very excited for this Champions League round. More than I have ever been in the past 15 to 20 years. Arsenal, PSG, it seems very classic, right? To see a Barcelona versus PSG in the final, or a Barcelona versus Arsenal in the final. Last time we saw Barcelona and Arsenal in the final was in 2006, I believe, when Ronaldinho was there. So I think Henry was also in that Arsenal team as well. I'm pretty sure that Henry is like having an orgasm right now because of the amount of teams that he has seen in the semifinals. So we'll see. That's it. I'm going to be wrapping it up here. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.